Hi everyone, this is Jonathan. Going to be giving a short demo of Precursive, looking at how this tool is used by services teams to manage and improve all elements of services delivery. And we'll be covering a few different use cases, including how services leaders, managers, and planners in your organization can mobilize teams, understand the performance of services delivery, and review key metrics and KPIs, alongside a day in the life for a project manager or a consultant and how they work on a project, manage their workload, and collaborate with their teammates and with their customer. Ultimately showing how some of this data that we can see here is actually generated. So Precursive is built on the Salesforce platform, or force.com, meaning we natively integrate with Salesforce, and therefore we're leveraging the reporting engine of the force.com platform here, looking at some of the key KPIs and metrics that I care about as a services leader. So I've got the volume of launches that's happening this quarter, what we delivered last month. I've got projects that are at risk. So I can see both red, amber, green. In this instance, I've got my amber and red projects. My delivery milestone summary shows me how long it's taking us to kick off versus hitting launches and indeed first value. So we can see how we're progressing versus a target, and overall how are we doing in terms of achieving that initial value milestone, with our target being 60 days. Below that then we've got our overrun summary, so where projects are running longer than expected. I can see what's happening in terms of the hours overrun and also what that means for us in terms of cost. But overall, I can see the profitability average across all projects this FY is still looking reasonably healthy. And below that, then we've got our onboarding trends. So looking at how things are performing over time, what projects I might want to drill into and understand why issues are happening. And finally, then my revenue forecast, revenue variance, and of course, utilization. And again, comparing what we're forecasting to do versus what we actually do. And finally, some of that time spent across our implementation packages. So these are some of the data points that we care about here at Precursive and that our clients care about. And again, these are all individual reports. So if I drill into this particular report, we can see the underlying data there. And if I wanted to, I could drill into one of these projects. So these are all individual reports, and this is a typical out-of-the-box dashboard that we get from Precursive. So to then further orientate you to what you're seeing on the page, so we've got accounts and opportunities at the top here. Those are standard Salesforce objects. Opportunities will be feeding our services team in terms of potential demand, both coming in from new sales, but potentially sell-on opportunities as well. Then we got Precursive projects, Precursive plan, Precursive OBX, my Precursive, that's 4 Precursives too many probably, and then reports and dashboards. So what I'm going to do is step through each of these to begin with, just to help you understand some of the building blocks to this platform, and then we'll get into some of the key use cases and scenarios that we would deal with on a day-to-day basis. So if I start in a project, here we've got our project with our client Blazer, which is forecast. So this is something that's linked to an opportunity that we've sold. If I scroll down here, we've got this opportunity, the HR Solutions op, which I'll open in a moment. We can see that we're due to start at the beginning of February. This is UK dates, London in the house. At the moment, Albert's obviously the one who's the owner of this project. That could be a planner or it could be in a queue. And on the right-hand side, we've got our deliverables, which is the PS package, and then in turn, the employee benefits add-on. So this is actually being driven in this example by what we've sold. So if I go into this opportunity for a moment, we can see what our salesperson is forecasting. And so, for example, we've got here imaginatively named some software, as well as our PS packages. So for those of you that are selling a mixture of services SKUs, what Precursive is going to do is at a certain point in the pipeline, we want to start planning for this. In this example, at negotiation and review, that's our commit stage. And what Precursive will do is build that project automatically pull in those deliverables. So we can see here we've got those deliverables that have been pulled in. And what that then does is it shows us what we're going to do in terms of our revenue on this project. Now remember, this is the PS revenue. The cost is being driven from the resources that we need for this project based on a project template. And I'll come back to how this can be used for us to understand what's happening in our project. We can automatically see here we've got a budget of 112 hours and we're running slightly over based upon what's being planned, and therefore we can see we're going to have some overruns. So either that could mean that we've maybe misscoped pre-sales, or we haven't added a certain package or number of hours to our opportunity. But again, this is in this particular demo meant to illustrate the variance that Precursive can pick up on. We've also then got revenue comparison here. So for example, what I've done is taken a snapshot of what this looks like pre-sales, so prior to closed won, and then over time we'll be able to see how that revenue forecast and actual looks like over time, and what revenue we're collecting in various periods, both from a forecast and revenue collection standpoint. We then have inside of this, of course, the relevant tasks that we're going to be delivering on this project. So they're all in here as well. We'll be coming back to that. We've got our SOW. So just a high level summary there of our project. In Precursive Plan, we're going to see the availability and capacity of our staff. So we can use this page to understand where we have white space, where people are overbooked. So for example, George Clooney, when he's not hanging out in Lake Como, he's working on this universal migration, but he's also going to be on holiday, we can see here. So we may need to do something about that from a scheduling standpoint, which I'll come back to later. And this tells us again, who's booked, who's got some availability, and I'll be explaining in more detail how we've got a roll up of people's capacity on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, and again, how we can differentiate between different types of project. In this example, we've got some color coding here for something that's forecast. I have a migration project here, could be managed services, for example. So again, that we can understand through this page, kind of a heat map of what's happening, both in terms of our projects, our people, and our revenue. And again, we'll come back to that in more detail. And then in OBX, we've got a project plan. So at the moment, I'm looking at that HR solutions project in my Gantt charts. We can see here we've got the relevant tasks down the left. We're going to need to staff this with a project manager, the estimated hours. And so as we manipulate this project, we're going to see the impact in terms of that overall timeline. And if I want, I can, zoom out and look at things over the course of the duration, and of course zoom in, move around pretty quickly and easily here. And then again, moving across the top, we're into my Precursive's everyone's favorite, which is the timesheet. So I've got a couple of projects here. I've been doing my timesheet this week, inputting my time, put in a comment here, can differentiate between billable work, non-billable work, overage, or as I like to call it, overage, and then some approvals, which again, I'll come back to, and some holidays. I'm a PM, so I've got a couple of people doing some work on some projects, therefore need to approve those timesheets in this particular example. Cool, so that gives you a little initial step through of the tool. Up here, I've got some favorites. So I've got some things that I've tagged as favorites in Salesforce. This can be dashboards, can be, as we can see here, a project. So let's look at that demand forecasting to begin with, and then look at the assigning of a particular piece of work, and then the transition into the world of that project manager. I'll just close this at the top here for a moment. So if we're thinking about that intersection between sales and delivery, understanding what's coming down the pipe, what's our availability, what's our capacity, and the linkage between supply and demand, Precursive is taking a range of information here and displaying to me what I'm looking for. So for example, I've got total demand, which is anything that is unstaffed at the moment at any stage of my pipeline. I've got what's likely to close. And again, this is in hours at the moment. This could be hours, this could be days. So it's showing me that totality of demand that's coming through. as well as my availability, both in terms of hours, and again, that could be hours or days, but also in terms of FTE capacity. And then by individual, I can also see by individual role what we have totally planned out, what's unstaffed, and again, our level of capacity. And then as I come down here, I've got what capacity do I have by month, by role. So for example, immediately I can see in February that we're going to have some issues if we need consultants, both in terms of like the number of hours that we are over or under, but also in terms of the FTE capacity. So this is showing us what capacity we have, and then again, different visualizations of demand that's coming through. And that again can be based upon probability here. And then finally, what roles we need to fulfill. So for example, we've got that project with Blazor where we need to allocate a project manager and a consultant, and we can see that there's actually some information here on that role that we need to fulfill. So again, we'll come back to that in a moment. Now, this information could be cut in different ways. It could be cut by geo, it could be cut by business unit. In this example, we want to look at what's at commit. So as I use that filter, Precursive is going to calculate, okay, if everything lands, we're in trouble, right? We're gonna need to think about how we potentially move work around to accommodate the need for, basically I'm nearly 1.5 people down in consultants for February. So I'll need to either make some adjustments or be providing my sales team with some information about lead times and when we can actually start. So there's that demand forecasting. So again, if we go into this HR solutions role for a moment, that's our project that I was in earlier, right? So if I come into the project now, right, we can see that we have a project that I was looking at before, and projects can have multiple phases. So for example, in this example, this is at the moment a project where we've got these deliverables, but for example, if there was a change request, we would use the phase structure within a project so that we could have a roll up going into the overall project showing us the total revenue and cost. And again, here I can see the roles that I need for this particular piece of work. But just to again show how this is all working together. So if I go back into my resource schedule, in the request mode, I've got the various different roles that I need to fulfill. So down the left-hand side, this is organized at the moment by client and then by role. So as we scroll down, we can see the different projects that we've got to staff. Here's our HR solutions project that's kicking off at the moment at the start of February. We can see that here's that note that was in my dashboard with regards to the skills that I need. But again, we can also differentiate between things that are forecast to happen. So this is not yet signed versus something that is signed. So we can see there's some rework here that needs to be done. And also I've got a managed services project for Q1, which again, I'm going to show how I can add to this booking, manipulate it, or create buckets of hours that we might schedule over a period of time. I can then group this by roles. So if I'm a resource manager and I want to just go through one by one and allocate these positions, I can. And I can see I've got a developer that's also needed for next week. So again, just some flexibility there on visualizing that demand, which again is flowing through into our project plan. Okay, cool. So let's move on then and look at how we can then do the staffing of the PM and what that looks like in terms of their world. So if I go back to my project now, before I go back, I could assign from here. So I could pick up a role and say, look, I'm going to assign this project manager, and Precursive is going to look for my project managers, right? So we can see here we've got the different positions. So I go through one by one and assign these to different people if I want to. In this example, though, what we have done is we've requested we've got a specific need for some specific skills on this particular project in order to deliver these various tasks, right? So zoom out a little bit there. So I've got some specific tasks that I need to deliver, and we've requested some specific skill, is that knowledge. So that might be linked to your skills matrix. So I hit this button here, and Precursive is going to look at who the best fit might be for this particular project, right? Now I can see here that it's bringing up a few individuals based upon their capacity and their availability. In this particular example, I do need this people first knowledge. And so the little head symbol, as it were, is showing me that that person doesn't actually have a match for the people first knowledge, but Jonathan does throughout. There's probably some scheduling issues which we've got to resolve. So let's, in this example, I'm just going to assign that to Jonathan. Cool, there we go. So now we can see in our project that Jonathan's been assigned to the project management tasks, right? So again, got our project plan here inside of the project. Right, and Jonathan's been assigned to those tasks. We can still see we need to assign our consultant. So now let's look at this from the PM's perspective. So if we come into our home screen for a moment, we can create different workspaces for our staff, and so you can surface here information relevant to their role. In this example, I've got tasks that I'm assigned to and or going to work on. Top right, I've got projects that are assigned to me as the PM. I've also got my timesheet there, which I showed a moment ago, and I can see surfaced up to me the impact of some overrun on one of my projects, as well as some information that's come through to me. So we assigned that project to Jonathan, so that's our resource planner, and within that project we have this PM assignment task that Albert took on. So he's letting me know that I'm the PM for this project, and here's the SOW. We've also got notifications at the top here, so if there's some line items that need reviewing, I've got the notification that I'm a PM on the project, but I've also got this note saying that we'll need to look at some additional development help here with the data migration. And again, this is all coming through here. So as a PM, I can then go and check this stuff out. So let's go and have a look at that. So if I drill in here, there's that PM assignment. I've got a checklist here, so this can be reminders to our staff on things that they need to do on various tasks within a project. So you could have, for example, guidance on configuration tasks for technical consultants. Here it's a guidance to my PM. Review the SOW. Oh, this is, sorry, my apologies. This is actually some guidance to the planner on this task. So it's like review the SOW, check the capacity and skills of the PM, and assign and notify, right? But that just shows you how we can drill into these tasks. And then I've got my data migration comment here from my colleague. So this is on the HR Solutions project, right? And again, there's some guidance on what we need to do. There's a consultant that's going to be needed to this task. So now I'm the project manager, so I can open up my project. First thing I'm going to do is add this to my favorites. That means I can go back into it at any time. And then I'm going to check what I need to do. So again, here we've got our project plan. We've got the financials for this piece of work. So we've got a snapshot of what it looks like at pre-sales. Imagine that we close this deal, we could take then another snapshot of the performance of the revenue. But for the moment, what I'm going to do is get in touch with my customer, because whilst I can begin working on this now, I actually want to schedule this kickoff call. So that's the first thing that I want to go ahead and do. So we can see there that that's happening on, or scheduled for February the 5th provisionally. So let's see if our customer is around. I've got my SOW here that I can check as needed, but I'm going to get in touch with the client, send them a note to say, let's see, welcoming them, and also seeing if we can get that kickoff scheduled. So I'm going to use a template here. I've got various templates that we can use to help our staff do their jobs a little bit quicker. So here's my welcome template, which is going to go out to my customer Emily. Now, that could be pulling across from a contact on the opportunity or on the account, depending on how your handover process works. But for the purposes of this, I'm not going to email Emily. I'm going to email myself, and then we'll show how that comes through. So this pulls in a template. In this example, I'm letting Emily know that we have a collaboration workspace that we can work in, and there's a video on how to interact with it. We've got a project plan, which is a read-only version here. And then we've got a short video of how to use that. And then I've got, for example, here some guidance on looking at the project plan in the read-only format, and then linking out to various different templates. So again, just a simple example. So so are you available for a kickoff on the 5th? And send that over. Send that over. So let's move on. Now then, so I've sent that email over to Emily. Looking at it from her perspective, this is what's going to come across. So we can see that that email's come across now. I'll click on here for my onboarding plan. Great, so that's pulling through the plan from Emily, for Emily, I'm sorry. So we can see here that we've got the various different tasks that are assigned to the customer. Now, what I'm going to do in my project, if I come back to the plan, is I'm going to add Emily. We can see here the different roles on the project, and I'm going to add her as onto the project. And then we will see if we come over here that that's highlighted her now onto her plan, which is great, which means that when Emily comes in, she can zero in on things that are relevant to her. And also in this example, I'm not sharing everything with Emily. So if I come back here, we've got some data migration activities. And these ones are only, this little lock indicates that we've hidden them from the customer. And again, this is just illustrative. So you could curate what it is that you want to show to the client, as needed. So in this example, now let's have a look at this project plan in the OBX tab. Cool, so I've got my project plan. And again, I can work, when I'm looking at interacting with everything in the project, I'm going to go into the project here. And when I want to just focus on tasks in the project plan, I'm going to work in the OBX tab. So again, here's the plan grouped by the various stages, which I like working with. Now, we can see here that we've got the kickoff call, which is due to happen on the 5th. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually make an adjustment to this plan, because in this scenario, the customer says to us, look, we want to move that start date back by a week. So first thing I'm going to do is add a baseline to the project. Now what the baseline is going to do is show any deviation from the project, right, at the point of closure or at the point of kickoff, depending on how you work. Now, the customer says to me, you know what? I'm okay with actually moving that back. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking that kickoff task, and as you can see, I'm moving it back. They've asked us to move it back by a week, which I'm going to do. And what this will do is it will kick out all those other relevant tasks, which means that I may need to make further adjustments to my plan. However, one of the things that I've done here is I've locked the go live. So that particular task has been locked, right? Now this means that if we need to hit a certain date for a task in our project, a milestone, whether that's for billing, whether that's a commitment that we've made, right? So it's locking that particular task, which means that I would then need to kind of manipulate this plan or look at how we could maybe pull things forward, right, in order to hit the timeline. So for example, I might need to pull this system build back here, and also actually pull this into this week, and that's going to squish that effort and update our project plan. Now I had a note regarding data migration. So as we go over here, I can also see this on my feed. So we will need some additional development help with the data migration. I can review the SOW on this. Okay, so got it. We usually send over a data file, so add a data template into Precursive. So if we're selling services packages and we might have add-ons, this is going to be very relevant to us. Now this particular project is built on a template. Those templates are linked to deliverables or opportunity products, or it could look back at CPQ and order line items in our CPQ. Now in this example, what I'm now going to do is come back and I'm going to add in a template for data migration. So what I'm going to do here is come in, import the template, select data migration. Now I can choose what I want to have come in, so don't need to worry about data design. Bring that over. PM assignment is done. As I continue to work on things, I'll update. We've seen that data migration pop in. When I work on the instance creation, I can pop in some time. This is going to drop into my timesheet. And what I'm going to need to do is look at the data migration. And in here we've got that we can have parent tasks and subtasks. Again, this is just to illustrate the different way that things can be managed. And now I'm going to need to put in some effort on these relevant tasks, because that's going to tell our resourcing manager, right, what we need to do. So here, for example, on the integration mapping, if I open up this task, I'm going to put in an estimate of 4 hours. And for the data dictionary, another 4 hours. Cool. And now I'm going to look at, let me find the data migration. So that's happening on the 15th. So I'm going to start this, schedule this around the same time. There we go. So now what that's going to do is it's going to schedule some of those follow-on tasks. Let's have a look like what that looks like on our Gantt. Cool. So here we can see the data migration and what that looks like in our project plan. All right. So I've added that in. There's our additional data mapping in our project. So data dictionary task, the data upload and the integration has not yet been scheduled, so we don't have any dates on those. If I drop into Precursive Plan for a moment, what I'm going to show is how this has flowed through to here, and now we can see for this project we've got those 8 hours that are required for that developer role. We come back into the project again, inside of the project, so we can see this overall view. Again, I've still got my additional requirements. So for example here, I can see which developers are available. Yeah, and I'm going to give that to Brad for the moment because he's available at that time. So that's assigning those tasks. Drop back over to the project plan. There's Brad. Yeah, and this is now in progress. So we're starting to get there. Okay, now we're still on schedule. And again, come back here, Let's have a look at this project. So we're still on schedule. We're into the kickoff phase. The assignment of the PM has been done. Started working on the project. We're still on schedule because that go live has been locked. We would need to do some additional work with our project in order to get going. The kickoff's been rescheduled. So let's move forward now and look at what we then need to do from a revenue management perspective, because we want to take another snapshot of what that's meant for our revenue on this particular project. So using my little quick link here, I come back into my financials and we can see a few things have happened. One, I've added some additional effort to the developer role, which has flowed through into our project, and that's influencing our margin. We've logged that hour, giving us an actual achieved rate at the moment of 30k. Obviously, as we book more time to this project, the achieve rate will come down in line with actually what we're achieving per hour on the project. And again, our overrun has increased as well. So in terms of this revenue comparison, so one of the things we've done is created a baseline, and we are then able to compare that with a forecast. Now, again, not really moved a lot of revenue around because our project duration has not changed because we locked that go live period. But what we can do is see how much revenue we're forecasting, what percentage completion we will be at this point in time during this period, which is in March of 2024. So what I'm going to do now is just show you what that looks like in terms of our revenue forecast. Again, we're able to compare that baseline versus what we're forecasting and in turn versus an actual, and it'll show us how much revenue and costs we're accruing in a specific period, as well as the margin per period. Now, in addition, these deliverables here have budget and revenue on them, depending on, again, how we're pricing those offerings. Also, in terms of how we choose to recognize revenue, we may recognize revenue based on a specific deliverable or a milestone in a project as well. And so that might also inform our revenue forecast. If I go into a different project, this universal project for a moment, this is actually a T&M project. And if I look at the revenue comparison here, let's take a look at that baseline versus the forecast for the period of January. So this is showing us what we were expecting to deliver in terms of revenue and margin. And we've actually been doing more work than anticipated. So we can see that we've booked more revenue, more cost obviously as well. We can see the variance between the two, as well as where we're going to end up. So, one of the things that for me, this is telling me in this example, this is obviously a demo org, but we've got significantly more hours forecast than what we baselined. So either things are moving around a lot and we're doing a lot more work a lot sooner, or potentially we're going to actually have to go back to, because if we look at Q2 as well, we've got more revenue being delivered in Q2 as well. We may well be needing to go back to our customer to talk about the amount of overwork that we're doing. Is this going to require an additional change request? Are we going to run out of budget? All of these types of things will filter into that conversation for our services team, as well as our project manager, who's going to be liaising with our finance manager on these types of topics. So again, that's allowing sort of closing the gap of that silo between services and finance and getting ahead of some fiscal management issues in services delivery. So now let's look at how we can book our time. So I'm in my Precursive, which is bringing up my timesheet. Precursive populates with the planned hours from the projects or the project plan. Alternatively, we can just have effort laid out across a period of time. We can also see, here's the hour that I dropped in for the HR Solutions project on that instance creation earlier on. And if I want to add or update time as I review my timesheet at the end of the day or the end of the week, I can just come through here and tab through, put in comments if I need. If I want to drop something else in, I can add in a new project, submit. There we go. It's pretty straightforward. Again, I'm able to go forward or backwards to go to my timesheet for last week. I was on holiday. It auto populates with the time in, and I just submit when I get back from holiday. And then from an approval standpoint, I'm a project manager in this particular demo org, and therefore I've got some hours here which I need to review from Denzel, some time that he submitted previously, which again I'm going to approve. I can put in a comment. That's done. Come back. Got Brad's approval. Again, approve. Or, if I wanted to, I can just go through, select everyone and approve them as one. So that's my timesheet and approvals. Again, all pretty straightforward. So let's look at some of the resource management use cases. So in Precursive Plan, we've got an overview as before of our team's availability and their capacity, and we can see where the white space is. So for example, if we take Anne Hathaway here, we can see she's coming available actually next week, and that if we zoom out, she's available through February and March. So at a quick glance, we can see who's overbooked, who's underbooked, and who's got availability. Down the left, we've got individuals and their various skill sets, which are mapped out. In the previous example, we showed the assignment of tasks based upon a need for HR skills, where we assigned Jonathan to the HR Solutions project as the project manager. So we can see there that people first knowledge is mapped out against his particular profile. Each bar parallel to someone's name shows their availability and their capacity. So for example, if we look at Albert, we can see over particular ranges, what we've used up, what he's got available. And then there's a roll up on a weekly basis, because this is showing what's booked weekly, showing us weekly availability. So for example, we can see from on the 29th of February, we use our date picker here. Sorry, at the beginning of February, I should say. Right, we can see how his capacity adjusts over time and a roll up of that based upon all of the projects that they have. So if we take George for a moment, again, going back to that example earlier, he's got PTO. We need to adjust this booking. We double click on it, or actually I'm just using two fingers there on my mouse pad, and I can split this, reassign it. In this example, I'm just going to move it. I'm going to move it back by a week to the 12th of Feb. So let's do that, and that will push everything out. And we'll see how that resolves that issue. In our request mode again, got the different roles and the requirements that we need, different statuses, and I can group that by those positions as needed. That feeds into our demand forecast, and if I want to look at a particular person, I might be looking at things from a location perspective, or based upon, in this example, I want to look at my developers for a moment. And we can see here our different developers. If I do need to move some work, right, I can move it, but I can also reassign it. So again, in this example, I'll pop that over to Tom. There we go. That's dropped down there. So we can see that efforts moved over, and again, notifications can go to those individuals as we need to. And then using that search functionality, we can create different search filters that I can go back to. So for example, if I do want to look at that project, the HR Solutions Delivery project, I can do that. So pretty straightforward to use, lots of flexibility in terms of searches, visualizing capacity, and resolving conflicts. Let's now finally check our professional services dashboard, which is bringing together a mixture of my PS bookings, my revenue, and other key performance metrics for our services organization. This is a little bit more, let's say, financially orientated than what we looked at the beginning, which was our portfolio overview, which was more project delivery based. But as we can see here, I've got what I'm planning to do this quarter from a revenue perspective and what that will mean in terms of margin. I have a target of 40% margin, so I'm just over, which is great. And then was under gross margin last quarter for that 929k. Then we can also see then the linkage into our finance system. Precursive has the ability to create invoicing records, as we can see here. So if I drill into one of these for a moment, we'll see that. But also we can push that over into our ERP, or we can invoice out of our PSA tool. This example is a T&M project where we've got those line items for our project manager. We can see overdue billings, and again, some of those data points around FTE demand and billable utilization. So again, Precursive brings together all of these data points that I want for managing my services organization. Hope you've enjoyed this initial walkthrough. Any questions, feel free to reach out to us via our website, precursive.com.